brought to me by federal employees who could be arrested for whistleblowing. We've published them. We know what goes on inside of there, and policy is being set during these meetings. They set up the European Union covertly, the beginnings of it. They have set up so many other programs. You've got government regulators meeting with the very industries that they regulate in private in the midst of this huge lobbying scandal here in the UK. We've got our own lobbying scandals in the United States. You have the mother of all lobbying operations going on right here in front of everybody, and for decades, at least in the U.S., they wouldn't even admit that this existed. I've got to give credit over here in the U.K., the BBC's been reporting on it for probably 30 years, but the point is, and also getting access into it, because the BBC's been somewhat favorable, I would say, overall, but the point is that this is a real global shadow government they tried to deny, and now we have forced everybody to admit that it is going on. And there's a reason they didn't want the hot lights of public scrutiny on this, because they know once people start looking at it and investigating it, there's going to be more indictments like there were back in the 70s with a lot of the American scandals. If it's a bit of blue sky thinking, why are there helicopters overhead? Why are there so many spy agencies there in attendance? Because I've been inside the hotels in other parts of the world when we're all thrown out. I've stayed in after the hotel's in lockdown. Okay?
What has happened as a result of other Bilderbergs?
What you have, and this has all been declassified. Carol Quigley back in the 60s was allowed into their archives. He wrote a book called Tragedy and Hope. It was for State Department officials to be able to understand, wait, we fund the fascists and the socialists, we fund the communists and the right-wingers, and it was to understand the dialectic. And it was only meant for State Department, but it got out. And you can read the book. And it was Bill Clinton's mentor that wrote the book, who was a student of Cecil Rhodes. And the plan was take the British imperial model, but corporatize it worldwide. And basically the United States adopted it, established Bilderberg with the CIA at the helm in 1954, with the UK power structure and what was left of the European power structure under the Marshall Act to basically merge it all under a corporate governance structure. And that's what it is, and that's what is now been established. And they're above the law. They don't have to pay the same taxes the public does. They get diplomatic immunity. They get to have trillions of dollars in bank bailouts of taxpayer money, all in a unified, concerted, technocratic, corporate martial law takeover. And it's actually a model developed by Hitler when he was having delusions of grandeur about he was going to take over all of Europe for living space. You can translate it into German, that they were going to use corporate governance again, kind of like they did with the Vichy French, putting a front up, but controlling it through finance and central banking. And that plan was actually adopted by the CIA in '54 through Bilderberg. So this is actually a Nazi German plan. That's why Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, originally an SS officer, was the founder. It's actually a Nazi plan for global corporate governance that has now been expanded out.
So if meetings like this are, as you say, they're opaque, they're undemocratic, they're clandestine, they're nefarious, they're even Nazi, what should happen? How much are
Well, I will say this: Bilderberg's brought in a lot of new blood. Google, they brought in Peter Thiel, the head of PayPal and other things, who are more modern and aren't kind of like the old crusty robber barons of the past. And I haven't seen them themselves commit enough open atrocities to be able to say that they're 100% nefarious. So I'm not saying everybody that is attending there is a criminal, but definitely this thing was set up to coordinate the key people from government, industry, and academia and media to carry out a corporate governance plan worldwide that we've now seen the fruits of. And that's why I think there should be investigations at the county, at the regional level, because one of their main agendas is to, quote, look at nationalism. That's their enemy. I see nationalism as firewalls, so that if a big tyranny rises up, there's countries to oppose it. I mean, going back to opposing the Soviets, going back to opposing the Nazis, it was countries that were a firewall that could operate against it. But now with EU bureaucracy exempting themselves from taxes and things, you notice how that's the technocratic governance that no matter what you do in the EU Parliament, no matter what you do in your British Parliament, it's still overridden by the larger EU, that the BBC from day one has been there working with the Bilderberg Group to push on the public.
And if these meetings continue, then, Alex, you'll continue to turn up?
Absolutely. We've had a huge victory. Now worldwide the press is having a comment, okay, it exists. You were conspiracy theory kooks for saying powerful people meet in secret, nothing's going on. New York Times 4 years ago said that I was at a thing and there was no one there. They said I was completely insane, even though there were helicopters and troops flying all over the place. And then now it's, oh, you're crazy that you care that they're hiding in secret behind a ring of steel. So it just doesn't matter. The dinosaur media is killing itself. We're not destroying the dinosaur media. The dinosaur media is killing itself because it's bought and paid for by these same interests. And of course, that's the perfect Bilderberg model because they take taxpayers' money locally to pay for this ring of steel, just like the BBC takes taxpayer money to then put out the Bilderberg message. And I think there is some good stuff on the BBC, I want to be clear. I'm just saying generally it's been pretty positive coverage of the Bilderberg. But also some of the only mainstream media coverage because you guys were given access to them. So who knows, maybe you know what you're doing. But
the only good stuff on the BBC is CBeebies.
And the new media is here in mass, and I think that's good.
The Midnight Garden.
That
man must have watched it there.
Yeah, right.
Forced the power structure and all the king's horses and all the king's men to come here and try to put their New World Order back together again. And it's not going to work. Thank you very much, sir. What's your name?
Mark, what's it good?
Here, let me see. Mark, good to meet you, buddy.